Hello, welcome to today's podcast. My name is Saxo Rojero, and today we'll be talking about the living conditions of refugee camps in the United States. So, in recent years, the number of refugees have increased dramatically. And if you ever watch the news or any social media outlet, you could have seen that you could have seen that change. For example, in 2018, thousands of Central American immigrants were coming to the US. They were probably you probably heard them as the caravan, or they were coming in caravans. And in recent times, about 2 months ago, thousands of Afghanistan refugees were being transported to the US for asylum. Now, throughout this whole drama, some of the questions that were going through my mind were, or some thoughts were, if we are housing all of these immigrants and refugees, what are the living conditions, or how are these refugees going to be doing? Because having that many refugees come to the US must have must have been overwhelming, um, which it was. Because according to Clara Lang, the senior researcher on immigrant in the US program at Human Rights Watch, stated that a lot of the refugee camps near the US Mexico border had cage like facilities, and that many of them lacked resources. They were limited on food, and a lot of them were sick and they were lacking basic hygiene. And that's that's not all. I remember watching the news throughout that time and seeing that families had to be separated because there was also limited space in these camps, limited space. And I remember seeing mothers and fathers, they had to give the children up so that they could at least be safe, or so they thought. And that was so devastating to watch. And of course, that's just what the news covers. Who knows what other horrible things could have happened? Maybe they had struggled crossing, or I know some of them had jumped borders and were being probably deported or detained just to seek that asylum. And with that all of with all of that in mind, throughout I wonder if the same thing was happening with the Afghan refugees. And since this event was happening recently, there wasn't any reports like Clara Long's report on the refugee camps near the US Mexico border. But luckily, my friend is a volunteer in a camp where they're holding the refugees. And I was able to interview him and get his opinion and get his thoughts on that, on how the Afghanistan refugees were being treated. And here's that audio of that interview.
Okay. So you wanna tell me a little bit that you do over the camp?
I'm actually doing a little bit of everything, from building the tents to putting flooring on the restrooms, on the cafeterias, different stuff. Kind of going around doing a little bit of everything wherever they need us to go, wherever they need people. That's that's where I go.
Okay, that sounds great. Just gonna ask you a few questions. To start off, how are the living conditions in the refugee camps?
Um, in my opinion, the living conditions are actually pretty well off. Um, I am not quite sure yet, but to the point right now, there's still many refugees living in the dorms, like where the military used to used to sleep their dorms. They set it them for the refugees, and from there on, lots of refugees are, as we progress with the tents, they're moving into the tents. To this point, many are still living in the dorms, but I'd say it's pretty well off. They did some, well, we're doing pretty nice stuff. We're separating them. They have their own parks. They have like their own city, so they don't feel so enclosed. Um, of course, we can't give them that home type feeling, but at least we don't make them feel like they're imprisoned. They're not prisoners. They're free to go. They need to go in certain areas, of course, because we are still, they're still work in progress. So we can't just have people running around, kids running around, because there's big machinery. So of course we have fences around, but they have the restrooms. They get handed the restrooms. They're uh, bathroom towels. They get handed toothbrushes, toothpaste, other necessities. They also they get separate beds for each person. Which to me that's very important because hygiene, after all, because there's many people enclosed in one space, so hygiene is very important. Now, for lots of people, they also have a medical section where they go and they get treated and they go and follow checkups. They feel bad or they something happened, they go there. There's people 24/7 switching in and out, so just ready for any emergency, anything happens. Another thing they do, it's pretty fun. They're actually making tournaments, sports tournaments, hockey tournaments, so to keep their minds going and doing some stuff. They're actually teaching them a lot of stuff. Most of them are teaching them English, so they can start getting the hang well of the language that we use because they gotta learn it. They gotta learn it in order to progress further on here. So I guess we're also building tents for their prayer. When of course that's a big important thing for them. Their day as a daily basis. So we are building prayer tents separate from, so they don't need to be praying where they're sleeping. They can have their own personal spot just for that, just as any normal person out in the world has. They have their churches. Of course, we can't build a complete church, but we are building something temporal for them to go there and have their personal privacy moment. And we're also making sections where they can buy other stuff. Where they're gonna, as to what I am informed, they will be bringing in certain shops for them to shop around and just like in the outer world, don't not miss on anything. They have their supermarket. They're feeding them, actually feeding them food from Pakistan. I mean Afghanistan. I apologize. We're feeding them food from Afghanistan. They're shipping out here. Our cooks were trained and followed followed a training on how to cook their food, their meals, just so they feel as at home, so they don't feel left out. They get a certain home taste, a home feel.
So you would say that the mental health of these refugees are not as bad as people tend to say on the news.
No, me being personally then and there on the spot, I see them really well off. Like I said, there's people 24/7 watching them, taking care of them, cleaning around. So they're always hygiene is very important. So there's people cleaning 24/7 these tents where they're at, taking care of the trash, not letting everything soak up whenever they need more water. Waters are delivered on a daily basis, and if they need more on a daily basis, they make more on that. So no, in my opinion, I've been seeing forward with them, and they're in a really good position. They are really taking care of them and their necessities.
And are the people in these refugee camps people that are just from Afghanistan, or is it mixed with some other people like from Syria or maybe from immigrants from Mexico or Latin America?
Uh, to my knowledge, it's only people from Afghanistan in these tents. I am informed that for other people, other refugees, they might be building separate tents because, of course, they don't want to mix everything up. They want to have people separated for certain reasons to locate everything. And as they move on with their citizenship status and everything, they want to have everything clear, everything set. They don't want to have a lot of separate things into one. So no, as to what I know, there's only Afghanistan people in these tents. No people from Latin America, no people from Haiti or other places from the Middle East, anywhere.
And what is usually the end, or has there been any, I guess, outcome for the end outcome for these refugees?
Could you repeat your question?
Can you repeat that?
Could you repeat the question? Yeah,
Oh,
sorry.
so what is like the end outcome of these refugees, or what is the planned end outcome for these refugees? Like, would they go back to their homes, or would they be given citizenship or something like that?
The main plan is for them to gain their citizenship because, of course, we can't send them back home. It would be putting their lives in danger, and we know that for sure. So we can't do that. Those people are coming here for a reason. We've taken them in for a reason to help them out. So of course, the main goal is have them there. The main reason for the refugee camps is to have them separated and a place to live. Meanwhile, we fix, well, not we, because I don't work on that, but of course, meanwhile the progress of their citizenship follows through. So these refugee camps are at least 1 to 2 years. Of course, there won't be construction 2 years, but there will be on and going for keeping their citizenship will be fixed by then. And we will be able to have everybody moved on and out located in different places so they can start their own life here with their families.
Okay, so with this information provided by my anonymous friend, we can see that not all refugee camps are the same. He said that the Afghan refugees were being treated very well. Well, maybe not as well as they wish to be, but they were being treated much better than the refugees in the camps that were described by Clara Long. Now, at the beginning of the podcast, I said we were going to talk about the living conditions in these refugee camps. But hopefully, with all of this information as well, It also brought some awareness to the issue, and hopefully we can all agree that nobody should live in a camp, especially like the ones that Caroline mentioned, where they were being treated a bit inhumanely. And yes, the camps where my friend volunteer is not the same and treats the refugees well. It is still an unfortunate thing to live in a camp. It's an unfortunate thing to live in a camp because it is still a camp and they aren't free and living in a they aren't free in a manner of speaking. And hopefully I'm getting my point across. And like I said before, hopefully this brings some awareness because I had conducted a survey and about half of the people I conducted the survey with had no idea how the living conditions or how the refugees were being treated in these refugee camps. So, in conclusion, not all the refugee camps have the same living conditions. Some are worse than the others, but a camp is still a camp, even though it's better than the alternate, which is sending them or leaving them where they're escaping from. Things could be better for them, especially in some camps, which raises the question: why are some camps better than others? Could it could it be because of resources? Could it be because of the location they're placed on, or maybe even about race? But unfortunately, we do not have time for that. Maybe we'll cover that in the next podcast. Thank you for listening. This is Axel Rojero, and we catch you on the next one.